Have you ever just looked at a world map and wondered, why? Why are some places so wealthy while others are caught in a cycle of poverty? It's genuinely one of the biggest questions out there. And what if the answer isn't just about what's happening today, but about things that were set in motion hundreds or even thousands of years ago? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into.
I mean, let's be real. The economic gap across the globe it's massive. The differences in income, in health, and basic opportunities between different countries can be absolutely mind-boggling. And while this isn't a new problem, figuring out where it all comes from is more important than ever.
So this is it. This is the big question. Why? What's the secret sauce? Is it about natural resources? Is it about leadership? Or just plain luck? Well, there's this incredible field of research that argues if you really want to get it, you can't just look at the present. You have to listen for the echoes of the past.
Right, so the main idea we're exploring here is that history isn't just a bunch of stuff that happened. It's an active force. Events from way back when can cast a really, really long shadow, shaping the economic world we all live in right this second. Okay, so this whole field really got its start thanks to a few groundbreaking studies. Now, I know this is a lot on one slide, but just look for the pattern. You had one study that found the kind of legal system a colonizer brought with them, like British common law versus French civil law, is still shaping a country's financial markets today. Another one found that where European colonists got sick and died a lot, they just set up systems to steal resources. But in places where they could survive, they built institutions around property rights. And a third one, it connected economies built on plantation slavery to massive inequality that just choked off growth for centuries. You see the theme? Different histories, but the same powerful idea. Choices made long ago put countries on paths they're still on today. So, if we're on board with the idea that history matters, the next obvious question is how, right? How does something that happened in the 1500s affect a country's GDP now? It's not some kind of dark magic. Economists have actually pinned down a few specific ways that these effects travel through time. The first, and maybe the most crucial idea, is something called path dependence. And it's actually pretty simple, but it is so powerful. It just means that where you are today is a direct result of the specific path you took to get here. Tiny, almost random things that happened early on can lock a whole society or an economy onto a track that becomes incredibly hard to get off of later, even if a much better track is right there. It's like a giant historical chain reaction.
And this is the perfect, everyday example of what we're talking about. Why are you using a QWERTY keyboard right now? Is it the best? The fastest? Nope, not even close. It was actually designed to slow people down so the keys on old typewriters wouldn't jam. There are way better, more efficient layouts like the DVROC keyboard. But QWERTY got here first, we all got used to it, and everything was built around it. So we are stuck on a worse path because of a historical quirk.
Let's see this play out in the real world with this story about two airports. Before World War II, Berlin was the big hub for Germany. Simple enough. But then Germany was divided, and for West Germany, Frankfurt became the main airport. So fast forward to 1990, Germany is reunited. Logically, you'd think the capital, Berlin, would become the main hub again, right? But it didn't. All the infrastructure, the airline routes, the businesses, everything had rewired itself around Frankfurt. A temporary shock from history created a permanent change. That right there is path dependence.
So here's the kicker. Path dependence often works its magic through a country's institutions. And when economists say institutions, they're not talking about fancy buildings. They're talking about the rules of the game, all the formal laws and the informal social norms that shape how we all interact with each other.
And to really get this, it helps to kind of crack open that black box of what institutions are. Researchers usually talk about two main kinds. On one hand, you have property rights institutions. Think of these as the rules that protect you from the powerful, from the government or the elites trying to take your stuff. And on the other hand, you have contracting institutions. These are the rules that help you make deals and trust that the other person will hold up their end of the bargain. You need both. And history has dealt very different hands to different parts of the world.
Okay, so it's not just about the written rules. History also gets under our skin. It shapes our culture, our shared beliefs, our core values, and all those unwritten rules about how you're supposed to act. And these things can be unbelievably sticky over time.
Check out this amazing example, the culture of honor in the American South. The theory goes like this. The North was mostly settled by farmers. Your property, Your farm is stuck in one place, and you rely on the government to protect it. But the South was settled more by herders, from places like Scotland and Ireland. And if you're a herder, your wealth is on four legs. It's easy to steal. So you have to build a reputation for being tough, for reacting aggressively to any insult, to show people you are not an easy target. Now, here's the wild part. Experiments today show this echo still exists. Southern men, when provoked in a lab setting, have a much stronger aggressive response than Northern men. An economic reality from centuries ago created a cultural norm that just won't fade.
This cultural channel can also lead to some really tragic, long-lasting effects. What you're looking at here is a chart that shows a truly stark connection in Africa. It compares how intense the slave trade was in a given area hundreds of years ago to how much people in that same area trust each other today. The result is chilling. The more intense the slave trade was, the lower the levels of trust are now. Not just trust in the government, but trust in neighbors and communities, even in family members.
And this brings up the single most important question you have to ask with this kind of research. Is it just a coincidence? Or did the slave trade actually cause this breakdown in trust? Well, the researchers who did this work used some pretty advanced methods to show that, yeah, it looks causal. The idea is that for centuries, the trade turned neighbor against neighbor, community against community, and that shattered the social fabric in a way that hasn't fully healed.
Okay, so the last major channel we'll look at is the way knowledge and technology get passed down. You know, skills, ideas, tools. Once they're introduced, they can stick around and build on each other for generations. Or sometimes they can be lost to time. So I've got a number for you. 25%. What could that possibly be? Well, get this. Economists estimate that the introduction of the potato from the Americas to Europe, Africa, and Asia is responsible for about a quarter, 1/4, of all the growth in population and cities after 1700. Just one crop. A single technological transfer completely changed the destiny of half the planet. Incredible. Now, I know what some of you are probably thinking. Hang on a second. This isn't about history, it's just geography. Some places have good weather and good ports and others don't. And that sets up one of the all-time great debates in economics.
So on one side, you've got the geography is destiny camp. They say it's all about the fixed things, climate, disease, access to the ocean. That's what makes you rich or poor. Then on the other side, you've got the history is destiny camp. They say, no, it's the rules and the culture. The institutions shaped by historical events like colonialism, that really call the shots. So, who's right?
Well, let's look at a piece of evidence that throws a real wrench in the simple geography story. It's called the reversal of fortunes, and here's part one. If you go back to the year 1500, before the big wave of European colonization, many of the world's richest and most complex civilizations were in the tropics. We're talking about the Mughal Empire in India, the Aztecs and Incas in the Americas.
And here's the punchline. Today, it's completely flipped. Many of those exact same regions that were on top of the world are now relatively poor, while places that were less developed back then, like North America and much of Europe, are now the richest. So if geography was the whole story, how on earth could that happen? It just doesn't add up.
And this is the brilliant twist that ties it all together. It's not geography versus history. It's the geography's biggest impact is through history. Think about Eurasia. It's wide, running east to west. That geographic fact made it super easy for domesticated plants and animals, and all the technologies and immunities that came with them, to spread across the continent. This gave Eurasian societies a massive historical head start, which eventually led to the guns, germs, and steel that made colonization possible. So you see, geography set the stage, but history was the play.
So we've traveled across centuries, we've looked at all these different forces, and we've seen how the past is never really past. Let's wrap this up and see why understanding these deep roots is so critical for making sense of the world we're in right now.
Look, if there's one thing to take away from all of this, it's that history has inertia. It keeps moving. It shapes our world today through real, tangible channels. Through path dependence, where tiny accidents have huge, lasting effects. Through the institutions we live under, the written and unwritten rules. Through the culture and beliefs we all share. And through the technology that gets passed down to us. These forces, put into motion a long, long time ago, are still playing out.
And that leaves us with one last really big thought to chew on. If things like colonialism
or the invention of the printing press had such massive, long-term consequences, what's happening right now that will be the deep history for people 100 years from now? Is it the creation of the internet? Is it climate change? Global pandemics? What events today are setting the path, building the institutions, and creating the culture that future economists will study to explain their world? It's a pretty powerful reminder that we are all living inside the history of tomorrow.